Hello everybody, welcome. It is Monday in all its glory. Due to comments about me sharing personal stuff in the introduction to my videos, I no longer do so, and you will just have to take my word for it. It had been one of the toughest mornings in a long time. So if I sound like I'm talking from somewhere in a black hole, it likely is where I am. So, with that said, let's continue with today's video. With regards to the video I put out over the weekend about African parks, Harry and the likes of Dan Wootton and his entourage, I do receive the African Parks newsletter and have for a long time. I am not going to run to YouTube with Dan's video. I have my own issues with them, but I did send a link of Dan's video to African Parks, and I do intend to send a link and a comment to one of the Sussex's lawyers. At the very least, Dan must be forced to change his title. Now please understand, it is not about Dan or Harry, it is about the truth. I have said this before and I shall say it again. Harry and Meghan are bad enough all by themselves. They do not need anyone to dig up nonsense or to distract with bullshit. And nor is it necessary to hurt or harm anyone else because of your hatred of Harry and Meghan. You destroy African parks because you hate Harry and Meghan, and you destroy 5,000 jobs. And that is just in ranges. Likely 5,500 to 6,500 jobs when you add in other staff like administrative staff and receptionists, etc. So, thank you, but no thank you. Africa has enough problems. We do not need Dan Wootton's help in destroying it further. Ask yourself this: do you want the Catholic Church destroyed because, say, 20 out of 407,421 priests fiddled with children? No. 20 out of 500,000? No. Although it has happened, and it did happen, no one went on YouTube and bayed and cackled to destroy the church. So now that African parks have proven that they did act, and the two Congolese men will likely perish in a Congolese prison, for God's sake, leave it alone. If you want to do anything, forget about the 1 out of 40 board members, namely Harry Mountbatten Windsor, and rather find a way to contribute to the families of slain wardens and rangers, and the rehabilitation of monkeys and gorillas which had their hands cut off, and other mutilated animals people all over Africa are trying to rehabilitate. It's a costly exercise. So if you want to do something good, you know where to go. Anyway, let's move on. I'm not done with the bullshit, not by far. I may be a day or two late on the subject because, unlike a number of presenters and creators, including one who appears to be a highly intelligent man, but who thinks it's funny and appealing to screech like a banshee from time to time. Boy acting like a clown stops being attractive and appealing once you become an adult, and you, my dear, must be nearly 50. Anyway, I prefer to wait for facts before opening my trap. Any case, I have seen something like 3 or 4 videos on the Frogmore Cottage renovations, and it is like an echo chamber. Harry and Meghan erased in capital letters from Frogmore Cottage as 2.4 million revamp is undone. A la Tom Sykes. Royal family erasing in capital letters. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from Frogmore Cottage. Is the monarchy next? That from Royal News Network. And on it goes. Even the Sun, Royal Exclusive, MSN, all copied the same headline and title, and some even added robo voices to the same narrative. Hallelujah, well done, guys. Well, I thought as much, but I wanted to make sure, and of course, it is bullshit. What is done to Frogmore now has absolutely nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. I do not think their names had even been mentioned in the decision-making process. Harry and Meghan officially vacated Frogmore Cottage in June 2023, exactly 3 years ago. 3 whole years ago. Get over it. So if I rent a house, I move out, then people are still going to talk about it 3, 4, 10 years later? Really? No. You move out. You close a chapter of your life and you move on, which is exactly what Harry and Meghan did. And believe me, Meghan never wanted to move to Frogmore Cottage. She wanted an apartment as big as William and Catherine's in Windsor Castle. She actually said as much, and the entire world and his buddies know about it. The Queen said, hell no. Now Meghan's next choice was Frogmore House, not Frogmore Cottage. And again, the answer was no, no, and no, which is really something we should talk about in a later video. But moving on, because both were working royals and their office had moved to Buckingham Palace, they could not be too far from London either. Although there were a number of other Crown properties vacant, Frogmore Cottage was the next on the list for much needed renovations, even though it was in use at the time. So it was offered to Harry and Meghan with the sort of dangling carrot being that it will practically be a clean slate and they could decorate it according to their own taste. Money was also not an issue. There was a scope of much needed renovations like plumbing, electrical, roof, etc., and that the Crown Estate would pay for and did. And then there was the more decorative aspect, the floors, the paint, and so on and so on. And that Harry and Meghan would eventually pay for. But at the time, the Queen, or then Charles, as he was holding the purse strings at the time, would advance them that money, which came to 2.4 million. At some point, they had to pay that money back. Now, whether they did or didn't is not even part of the discussion. I doubt they did, and I doubt Charles did, because by June 2023, the Queen had already passed away, and the sovereign grant already went to Charles. So who was he going to pay back? Himself? Moving on. Okay, so Eugenie and Jack sublet for a couple of months. Harry and Meghan's lease was then not renewed. So the place remained vacant for 3 years. No income, no one living there, a 100% loss for the Crown Estate. The so-called king, as out of touch as he is, wanted it kept vacant because the word is that he wanted Andrew to move there, which was stupid in the first place, because if he wanted Andrew out of sight, then Frogmore Cottage was definitely not the place for him. Another reason why it was left vacant was, number one, no other royal wanted it. Number two, it is not located in such a spot that it would be comfortable renting it to strangers. A number of logistics would have come into play, and things like access points, etc., would have had to be changed, and so on and so on. Long stories, I'm not going to go into all of it. Now, because Frogmore Cottage is also on the grounds of Frogmore House and Gardens, which itself sits on the grounds of Windsor Home Park, and Frogmore is merely half a mile south of Windsor Castle, obviously the Crown Estate also has to consider security. It just is what it is. Okay, so before it was turned into a one-family home, it consisted of 5 two-bedroom units, which was housing staff. So Windsor Great Park is huge. In total, 6,400 acres. Plus, obviously, some outcrops going into the Windsor home estate, etc. Now, the park itself receives approximately 5.5 million visitors annually. Now, no one could tell me exactly how many people work for the Crown Estate in order to maintain that 6,400 acres, because some are permanent staff, others work for the Crown Estate, but not necessarily at Windsor Great Park every day. But, shame, the poor woman tried to give it her best guess. There is, for instance, the deputy head ranger. Yep, because Charles made himself head ranger when his father died. But never mind, there are 15 to 20 specialized foresters, 25 to city gardeners, and about 10 people handling the wildlife in the park. She guessed that there are about 150 permanent staff in and around Windsor Great Park. So before Harry and Meghan turned Frogmore into a single family dwelling, it housed 5 to 10 members of the Windsor Great Park staff. So this comes from the horse's mouth. It took a while to decide what to do with Frogmore Cottage due to its close proximity to Windsor Castle and Frogmore House, and more than that, there are costs involved in turning it back into apartments. So it was a matter of getting quotes, having meetings about it, etc., etc. You guys know how it goes. But it appears that there is already something happening at Frogmore, as some contractors have been seen there. The woman was not 100% sure, but it is relatively certain that it is being turned back into 5 apartments. All she was not sure of was whether the Crown Estate would rent it out or whether it would again house staff. She's guessing it will again house Windsor Great Park staff due to its closeness to the castle and Frogmore House, which the royals occasionally use for functions. So there you go. Nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. It is a building sitting there doing nothing. And the Crown Estate is a business. Besides, I doubt Meghan would ever come back to the United Kingdom, at least not permanently, because no one in the royal family or among the staff or the majority of the public wants her back. They will have to house her in a high security prison or something to protect her against rotten tomatoes. Anyway, she would want, if she did come back, if she would come back, we never know, she's got a brass neck. Anyway, she would want Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle all to herself. A crown, a private jet, and 2 Rolls Royces. Well, forget it. She is not going to get it. I can say this with a measure of confidence. Charles may want Harry back, even in a half-in, half-out capacity. That is the truth. He said that to senior staff and to friends. He wants the son who takes after him there as a backup closer to him. But even he does not want Meghan back. Anyway, we'll talk about that tomorrow. But know this, whatever they do at Frogmore Cottage is a business decision by the 8 commissioners of the Crown Estate and has nothing to do with Harry or Meghan or really Charles or William. And folks, again, phone up the Crown Estate or send them an email and you will hear exactly what I heard. Harry and Meghan are not and were not even a consideration in this matter at all. So all these drama clickbait peddlers can now stop with writing erasing in capital letters. You, my dears, are actually making fools of yourselves. And no, the commissioners of the Crown Estate are strictly only responsible to the government and the king. Does William have influence? I guess so. But time for pettiness? No. William is far too busy to care whether Meghan's copper bath, which I believe was bullshit anyway, is being removed or where it goes to. It is not even something which will be discussed with him. He does not care. And currently, well, even though he's the future king, he himself is also a tenant of the Crown Estate at the moment. And for those who care to know, William is not paying a peppercorn rent. He is paying £307,500 British pounds per year for Forest Lodge. And that amount is funded privately from William's private income. There you have it. Even William is a tenant of the Crown Estate. Okay, my dears, we'll continue these discussions and more tomorrow. Until then, please take good care of yourselves, stay vigilant, and stay safe. And before I go, thank you to those who have come to my rescue so far. I really, really appreciate it. I will have more to say on this subject, or thank you properly, in a future video. Until then, like I said, take care, stay safe, bye.